God made everybody differently and everybody's hardwired differently. I didn't used to think that way. I used to think from my own perspective that people should all be savers. But can you imagine what it'd be like if the world was all savers? It'd be a black and white world, I think. It may be gray. I don't know. It would not be a happy, happy place.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Good morning, Caleb. It is a great day in Indianapolis. It is race weekend. How's your day?
Weenie 500 later today.
I don't even know what the Weenie 500 is. Tell me about it.
There's 6 Oscar Mayer. I think it's 6 hot dog cars racing around the track.
How did I not know this?
Yeah.
What time is that? Do you know?
45 maybe.
If you're watching live and you've got nothing going on at noon today, Indianapolis 500 Motor Speedway, worth your time. All right. Well, I am embarrassed sometimes by the antics of my childhood and sometimes impressed. I don't know if you have that same feeling, but did you know that I was a loan shark by the age of 12? Have I told you this before? Part of what I want to talk to everybody about today is that a lot of people's financial wherewithal, I think, is innate. It's kind of my opinion. You're kind of born with a little bias one way or the other. And I was born a saver. Like the only time in my whole life I can recall not really having money was when I first got in this business and was on straight commission. There were months where I would make $500 and my rent would be like $800. And so I didn't have an abundance of money. And so during that time, I was a spender and not a saver. But probably that's when you need to be. When you're starting a business, sometimes you got to push things a little harder. But as a 12-year-old, I had a paper route, which you don't even know what that is anymore. You just have a bicycle and this bag that you would fold the papers at some ungodly time in the morning and then throw them on people's porches. Theoretically, it'd be the middle of the yard with me back in the day. And then you would get paid and you'd make some money on that. And then, so I always had money, but my siblings' personalities is they always spent money and they didn't ever have a nice bicycle. And there was a grocery down the road that they would want to use my bike and ride it down the street to the grocery instead of walking or having their own bike or anything. And I would charge them money to ride my bike. And I don't really even feel bad about it today, to be quite honest, but it was kind of a loan shark personality. A loan shark takes advantage of the spenders in the world, and savers tend to be able to do that as well. You can take advantage of spenders. And in that process, it didn't ever occur to me that my siblings were at a disadvantage because their bias was to be more of a spender than a saver. Can you imagine, can you envision your siblings that are like, if you were to say, hey, I have 4 siblings and some of them are spenders and some of them are savers. Can you, like, off the top of your head, kind of think through each of your siblings and say who's who?
Yeah. Some of them probably changed a little bit throughout the years, maybe getting out of the house and having some more responsibilities and that making them more savers. But I think I can get a general idea probably.
Yeah. And it's been interesting as a young financial advisor, I would spend time with potential clients and talk through, here's a budget, work on this and get back to me in 6 months. And then nothing would really change. And then I would kind of sit down and talk them through it again and say, don't you understand me? And we would do this thing. And then this cycle would go on. And then just over many years of watching it and considering it, it occurred to me that some of this is a personality type, that some people are just naturally savers and some people are spenders. And A budget is telling your money where to go and spend it in those categories. And that's just really natural for some people. People that tend to be disciplined in a variety of ways can tend to do better with a budget than somebody that maybe isn't as naturally kind of disciplined in that area. Maybe even math people. I haven't really thought about it. Maybe math people are better with being more savers than spenders, but it's just an interesting thing to think through. So just want to talk through with our friends that are hanging out with us today, what that looks like for them. And this is the spectrum of kind of 1 to 10. Are you a spender or a saver? And why this is important is you can kind of assess your own situation. Like, just being honest with you, like if you are walking down the checkout aisle at the grocery, do the impulse purchases capture your imagination at all, or are you invisible to those?
Me personally,
yeah,
I'm not invisible to them, but the logical side of me pushes them away. I was thinking about this the other day. I have a lot longer term vision with like wanting a house paid off, got probably a new car that I'm going to have to buy here in the next couple of years. So I have those longer term goals that I have in my mind rather than the short term pleasure of those purchases. So that
there's a Stanford marshmallow test. Have you ever heard of that? Where they use little kids and they'll put a marshmallow out in front of them in a room by themselves, and they'll say, if you hold off, I forget the exact details, if you hold off on eating this marshmallow, then we'll come back in a couple minutes and give you 5 more. And they've got a camera on these kids and they watch them. And these kids, you can just see them. So the ones that tend to be what I would call spenders, you can just see the trauma going on in their life. And then finally, they just pop that thing in their mouth. The savers, those personalities, they would just probably not be influenced at all because they're thinking, I'm going to get 5, right? Like, or whatever. And so that mindset has been tested over time. And that testing of it just points out that there's just different personality types. And so when I was a younger man, and, if you are trying to manage your spending better, I think Dave Ramsey probably has some good tools to help you. However, I would say that it probably doesn't work for a lot of people, like the people that are kind of at that 5 to 6 range and tending to the right. I think what Dave Ramsey's kind of things are going to do are just make people feel a lot more guilty. They're going to make them frustrated because they just can't overcome the impulse aisle at the grocery. Like, there's got to be a good portion of people that can't overcome the impulse aisle. Like, they wouldn't have them, right? Like, I think groceries make a lot of money because, like, I think even like Home Depot puts an impulse aisle. Like, it wouldn't even occur to me that. Yeah, and shelf space is invaluable to retailers. So the idea that they're going to take shelf space at a Home Depot and put what was the candy we learned about earlier today? Reasons? We're going to put reasons on the impulse aisle. Shout out to Libby today. So yeah, it's a new candy. You guys let us know if you've ever tried it, or new to me. I don't know how long it's been around. I've got a little impulse going on that right now. So the next exercise on this spectrum that we have here is, where is Caleb and where is Judah on this space? So I think this is important. This podcast is probably worthwhile if somebody's dating and they haven't really talked about finances much. I think this is designed to help them talk through the reality of life. So tell us where you and Judah are on this spectrum.
I think, even just thinking about it right now, we probably both are a little bit further to the left than what I initially put it.
Yeah.
But I'm the red, and like I just personally, since I have that longer term mindset, I know that like every small purchase eats away at that. So like even like getting drinks when you're at a sit down restaurant, I know that's more expensive than if you were to just buy it at a Walmart. And so that in my mind is like, oh, that's not worth it. Or even if I go to fast food for a meal, I will just get an entree and a side and not the drink to save the extra dollar. So like that's the side where I'm really stingy, like those small things. But if it's like a hobby of mine or something else, I don't mind spending the money and being able to enjoy the time with that.
Yeah, and I think that's this is a challenge. I think that this spectrum is really helpful for me to look at it. So if you're a 10 really would be all the way to the left on this thing, and a 1 is all the way to the right there. But I would think both of those are going to be challenged personalities, because if you're a saver to the max, you're probably going to end the game of life with a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you have no control over who's going to inherit that. So you may be rolling around in your grave if your number 1 spender child gets a third of it or quarter or however much of it, because a lot of times an inheritance is spent that quickly if it's inherited by a spender. And so all the discipline and energy that number 10 took, should it land in the hands of a number 1, they are going to party hard. I was explaining to Caleb the Prince song, Party Like It's 1999. And that's what's going to happen with those number 1s getting money from a number 10. It's going to be a party. You want to be around. If you can get invited to that party, that's where you want to be, because there's going to be a lot of money flying around at that. So anyway, Connie and I would think, I can't, like, this is a subjective gauge here, what number you are. From what little I know how you spend money, I've observed, but I don't know what's going on inside between your ears. And, I would say Connie and I are both probably, give or take, right around the 7 and 8, right in there. I mean, we don't talk about spending money because neither one of us are biased to spend it. So that if we need something, we just buy it. And it never upsets our cash flow, because neither one of us tend to come home with the as seen on TV special. And so we don't have to dialogue a lot about our finances. However, if there is a span between you and Judah there, it just is what I call like a communication or a conflict gap, that you both perceive a acquisition differently. Yeah. Like if you're in a different place on that. Yeah. And Bob Warren, a good friend of mine, taught me the idea of why not consider a big purchase the number of hours you're going to have to spend working for that. Yeah. And taking the pre-tax hours and converting it to post-tax dollars, because you have to work pre-tax to buy a car, but you can only pay for it with post-tax dollars. And so that adds probably a third of the amount of time you're going to have to spend earning it just to pay the taxes. And so when you can look at something in your math personality and go, oh, that's going to cost me 1,000 hours, I don't really want to spend that much time doing that. That influences me a lot. There are things that I'll spend a lot of time doing because I really like that. Like for me, a value in life has been giving, and there are certain ideas that I want to reinforce and give money to those places. But at the same time, I've drove a Chevy Lumina van, so that is in the top 10 ugliest vehicles ever, and so you can gauge that I don't value that so much. Yeah. And a good friend of mine drives an Aston Martin, and he values that. Doesn't mean one of us is right, one of us is wrong. It just means that God made everybody differently, and everybody's hardwired differently. I didn't used to think that way. I used to think from my own perspective that people should all be savers. But can you imagine what it'd be like if the world was all savers? It'd be a black and white world, I think. It may be gray. I don't know. It would not be a happy place. Well, here's so if you're young and you're dating and you're considering things, I think using this little tool here to talk through one another, you go back to the original one, show this to your girlfriend or boyfriend and say, if a spender is somebody that never has any money, that every dollar that comes in, it's gone that quickly, is a 1, and a saver is they still have the first dollar they ever got when they were born, and they can't spend a dollar to save their life, is a 10. Where are you on this? And you both put an X on the little semicircle, and then you do like we just did there. You say, here's you, here's me, and we're just dating now. Let's talk about that. Like if we can't talk about it and when we're dating, that may be all that we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because a lot of marriages run into problems because of financial matters, I think generally the financial matters are this very topic. Like if they got $10 million, I don't think they're having any financial problems. Like they're even in that they may have a conflict of, do we go to Tahiti or Orlando? I don't, for vacation, those kind of things. But you can use this to talk with one another and say, hey, what are we going to do with this? And if you were a 9.6 and a 1.2 on here and you marked it there and you have that long conflict communication line, it doesn't mean you can't be together. It just means we need to communicate a lot. Like we need to not put guilt on one another, because if the saver is putting guilt on the spender, they're going to become kind of like a closet addicted person with their money. They're going to try to maybe get separate money somehow, not talk about it. They're going to buy things and hide them and do things that create maybe a level of distrust or discomfort with one another. And so knowing that's a possibility is probably important. And I don't think that this conflict that goes on in public so much. However, I'm pretty sure it goes on a lot because people have generally a hard time communicating about difficult things. And if you thought this is my God-given personality type, and I'm somewhere on here where my personality is, that's maybe a better way than saying my way is right. I don't know if you've thought about that before, that everybody's personality is somewhere different. Because how you described yourself is way over here on the saver side, right?
Yeah.
It would be easy mentally to judge somebody that's just loading up their shopping cart in the impulse area there.
Definitely the saver. And there's only, you might be going into this next, but there's only so much you can move along the line. And part of that might be once you get in a relationship, they may be able to influence you one direction or the other, but if you're at 2, you're not going to go over to a 7.
I think that's exactly right. And to expect somebody to do that is probably wrong on your part. The idea that I'm dating somebody and they're okay how they are, but once we get married, I'm going to fix them in any aspect of marriage is insane, in my opinion. Like you should stop, hit the eject button, get out of this. That most people will change in life, but they're going to not change at the magnitude that somebody made. If they're not okay with the general area, if I'm not okay with somebody generally being in that 1 to 2 area and I'm dating them and I'm a 9 to 10 area, but I think they're going to be a 7, I am the insane one. It's not them. I am the problem in this decision grid. And I just think it's important people to think through this. You could probably put any kind of behavior in there. You could put exerciser, non-exerciser, right? And just say, where are you on this? Are we okay with this? Am I like to party. I don't like to party. Where are we on this? Because whatever those are, we probably just need to put that conflict communication line in there and talk about it.
Just being aware of it before, so you can have those conversations.
Exactly, because whatever matters to you is where you need to communicate and not ignore the topic, because ignoring a topic is not going to improve it. It's just going to let it linger and maybe create some bitterness and anger. I created this little chart that you drew up there for me. This graph says that that income, or that spender saver spectrum, is less significant and less stressful the higher your income is. You can have more fat in your budget, less stress and pressure in your budget the higher your income is. The lower your income is, the more stress and pressure you're going to feel in those situations. And so where that might mean it takes place is that a young couple may not be at their maximum income, and they're brand new at knowing each other. And if you go back to you've got a number 10 and a number 1, there's a lot more possibility for conflict when there's not as much income, because you can blow up your expectations. A budget's really just an expectation. This is what we expect to spend in these areas. You can blow that up pretty easily when you're young and you don't know each other, you don't know how to communicate with one another, and one's a spender and one's a saver. This chart here doesn't generally work in your favor as a young married couple to take the pressure off of the differences in personalities. But as your income goes up, the pressure goes down in that area, and maybe you won't ever have a higher income, and so that pressure may just be part of your relationship. But yeah, there's definitely people that don't feel the pressure, and so they still don't communicate because there's no pressure there.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting idea of why that might fit into it. And when you think of the spender saver spectrum there, and why it might matter over time, I've talked about and written about how much is enough in the past, and we may do a podcast talking about that in the future. However, if, say, you have two kind of more biased savers like Connie and myself, you're going to hit generally your maximum saving years probably with today's culture in your 50s. In the old days, when people started having kids younger, it was your late 40s, but I'd say it's probably mid to late 50s. Now is when you're going to have your maximum savings, because all your expenditures are behind you. And so generally your net worth is going to angle up a little bit more after that season in time. So your net worth accumulation in life isn't really going to be a straight line. But when you're talking about how much is enough, if you have discipline, you're probably going to have a lot of money at the end. You're just going to. The most simple idea of financial planning that is the most critical one is to spend less than you make. Like if you can do that over a 50-year marriage, you should have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Without using our financial advice. If you can just do that, it's the compounding of time, energy, and money. You'll have a lot of money. I can't guarantee you that, but you're probably going to have more. And so if you are thinking more, does that ever come to an end, or do you just keep bringing more into you? And you can just, there are people out there that they just all the way to the end are trying to think of how to make more money. And it's at some point, particularly if you're a saver and you have more wealth, it's just a compounding challenge.
Yeah.
Can you see how big a challenge that could be in your own thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you say you're 60 and haven't spent a dime your whole life, that's not going to change once you hit retirement, and you're just going to accumulate more and not spend it and then leave it to the next generation.
Yeah, and probably my thought on this is probably if you're in your 60s going towards 70 and you've been on that top angle there, that almost looks like a 45-degree angle, the more. If you're there, probably a way to shift down to that next angle, live, give, balance, is to realize, you know what, if I'm in my 60s, my kids are probably in their 30s. This is probably their most challenging time. And wonder if we reduced our slope of our accumulation and thinking through it. And even though we're a saver, we consider giving as part of spending. Maybe we could compromise our thought process and reduce the slope of our accumulation by giving to not only our children, but maybe we could help out other people in our circle that might make a difference. And if we go back over here and you're over there and both you and your spouse are a number one there, I mean, you guys are going to be a lot of fun to hang around. Like, you're going to want to be my friend if you're both number ones. You may need some help from me to finance whatever we're going to do. But you're the live kind of people. Most likely, if you're over there, it just means you're going to have to work a long time. Unless you get a big inheritance, unless you got an uncle that's a number one over there and leaves you a big pocket of money that you can keep living. But most likely, that's not going to happen. Most likely, if you're a live kind of person, what you're going to have to do is probably moderate over time. And sometimes that's just forced on you. If you can't work any longer and all you have is Social Security, there's not really a plan B at that point. So your live is going to probably just be good memories that I've had. That was a good time. I can't do that so much anymore. And I have friends that I can think of that got to that place in life, and they're still fun to hang out with. Like they're fun to talk about their stories and see what's going on. But the idea of thinking about a budget maybe a little more differently than most people talk about is probably helpful, I think. And if you're trying to get an understanding over your spending, there is help out there. There are tools out there. Somebody like calling Caleb, and he can give you ideas. I did as you guys were growing up, I did a lot of subtle things that I didn't explain to you guys, that this is how I'm giving us space and margin in our cash flow so that we can do fun things. And part of it was the psychology involved in being a business owner, that I don't know what next year's income is going to look like. I couldn't incorporate a lot of spending as consistent spending because I wanted to have my business more than I wanted to spend money. And so I neglected spending money on things so I could have the peace of mind to do my job, have some cash flow, and not fret about the down cycles. One of those things, I think, was the 2008 down market and the COVID down market. I don't recall if we had physical conversations with the Gimbal team or not, but we let them know that the owners of Gimbal were going to take pay cuts as much as we could before we have to say goodbye to you. And so that's a spending decision that affects my personal spending. Other business people don't think that way. They think the economy is, it's flexible, it expands and it contracts. And sorry about your bad luck, but I have to contract Gimbal, and we'll see you maybe later or not. And that's just a different leadership style. And there's nothing wrong about their style. It's just a different personality type. And so my personality type of wanting to prolong the longevity of the relationships of the Gimbal team was a spending decision that didn't really necessitate spending money, but it was mentally, I couldn't spend other money right then because I needed to have a surplus in order to allow the business model that we had in place to continue in that manner. Kind of a wild thing of how complicated spending can be in the mind of different people.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I think the main thing I wanted any viewer to take away and to up their average with this is to realize that I am a unique human. I think about money differently than anybody else. I'm not necessarily right or wrong, but if I want to get along with other people, I can't just view them from my perspective. I need to realize they're in another place, and we can get along even with that conflict communication line. If we're straight across that thing, we can still get along. It just means we need to talk a little more and appreciate where one another is.
Yeah.
And if any of you are a number one and you want to go out and have a good time with me, reach out and call me. And in the meantime, this weekend, Caleb, I hope you can go to the race and have a good time, spend a little bit of that hard-earned cash that you got. But see you guys soon. Bye-bye.